a diabetic plate should always tell your patient that how their plate should appear. Half of it should be vegetables, a quarter of it should be carbohydrates, and of these carbohydrates, what do we want? We want complex carbohydrates with low glycemic index, okay? And also, the next quarter should be protein, things like fish, meat, etc. Yeah. Then let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is obesity. Obesity is a condition in which excess body fat accumulates to the extent of predisposing a patient to health conditions and reduce life expectancy. So BMI to diagnose diabetes is greater than 30. And we have different classes, class 1, class 2, class 3. Class 1 being 30 to 35, class 2 35 to 40, and class 3 is 40 or higher. Then there are certain risk factors to obesity like genetics, medications, especially those diabetic medications, the oral diabetic medications, as well as insulin can also cause obesity, the anticonvulsants, and we have conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome, thyroid disease, and Cushing's disease that can cause obesity. So obesity is not always because someone eats a lot. It might be due to other reasons that we should take note of in our history. So nutritional management of people with obesity, we have something we call the DASH diet, which we shall see in the next slide. It's just dietary approaches to stop hypertension. And we also follow a plant-based diet. Plant-based diet, you only eat plants alone, but that will entail trying to get your complete amino acids, as I explained earlier. Yeah, so you'll have to incorporate different plants in order to get all your amino acids to create a complete protein in your meals. Then we also have to reduce dietary fat completely. Like, especially if you to include the fat in the diet, you include the unsaturated fats only. The saturated, you try as much as possible to eliminate them completely. Then you choose foods high in complex carbohydrates, as I explained earlier. We have some examples up there. Some examples like brown rice, whole wheat, oatmeal. Then you have the potatoes, sweet potatoes, and corn. Corn is maize. Yeah. Then you also minimize sugars as much as possible. And then finally, we're looking at the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So the DASH eating pattern recommends reducing intake of healthy fats and keeping total fat intake to less than 25%. You might be taking your healthy fats, but you want to reduce your healthy fats. Why? Because fats give a very high calorie boost. So now this high calorie boost is what we want to eliminate in obesity. We don't want excess calories. We want minimum calories. So you minimize fats, all kinds of fats as well. Then to keep fat to less than 25% of the diet's energy, as well as increasing the proportion of low energy dense foods. Low energy dense, like the vegetables, fruits, and low fat dairy products. And then DASH limits foods high in sodium, saturated fat, and sugar. So the main things you should look at: sodium, saturated fat, and sugar. Sodium, I'm talking about salt. Yeah. So you have to eat more fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy. Cut back on foods that are high in saturated cholesterol and trans fats. I explained the trans fats earlier. So you have to eat more whole grain foods, fish, poultry, and nuts. You limit sodium, salt, sweets, sugary drinks, and red meats. Then finally, we have our fun fact for the day. You can't talk about nutrition without exercise. Exercise is important. So why does low intensity exercise consume more fat than high intensity exercise? Yeah? Well, this is basically due to aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration consumes less ATP because we only go through the glycolysis pathway, and we stop there, producing 2 ATP molecules. And then the aerobic respiration. That's where we start from glycolysis. We go to the Krebs cycle. We go to the oxidative. Yeah, oxidative phosphorylation. Yeah. Yeah, and we eventually reach the electron transport chain. Yeah. So the whole process consumes 36 ATP, which is more than the 2 ATP we get from anaerobic respiration. So more energy, which means more burning more fat in order to produce more energy for your exercise. So thank you for your time.